Hello, welcome to A Hail Over Hill. I am Hale, this is Leah Francis, and today we are talking about something that I haven't exactly talked to you about on this channel, but is a passion of mine: Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop role-playing games. Though I specifically want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Now, yes, the big topic nowadays is the open gaming license and D&D Next. But that I'm not actually talking about. Well, there are plenty of people who out there talking about it. You can check them out. For me, there's something else. So a few months ago, I was up and visiting my brother for his birthday, and we ended up mostly out of interest myself. I wanted to go watch a few episodes of the Legends of Vox Machina, the Critical Role animated show. Oh, and at least check it out. I wouldn't call me myself a fan of Critical Role, but I'm familiar enough with it. Um, and then a few weeks ago, um, on a Sunday night that I had free from work, a a few new players came in, including one player who hasn't played Dungeons and Dragons since the 80s, but he wanted to get back into it. And with this, I was thinking, how do we explain things to all the players who might not have played? And it's like, and even when talking to my brother, he's like, oh yeah, look at Grog. He's a half giant. He's not size category large. He should be that big. And Minotaurs aren't big, and gnomes. Gnomes weren't a thing. It's like, and it made me realize something. Yes, but there are mechanical things that are definitely changed. Like, oh, he looked at Vax and said, oh, he's a thief. It's like, yes, for your understanding, that is a thief. Oh, he's mechanically a thief, though he is no longer considered a thief in terms of mechanics. He's a rogue nowadays. Um, but then it's like, his sister, Vex, she must be a beastmaster because of Trinket the Bear. No, but yes. It, for your understanding, brother, she is. She's now considered a ranger, but much of the archetype of a ranger is being a fighter of nature, being a scout, understanding nature, and being a beastmaster. So it had started to make me think about things of how how do we look at fifth Dungeons and Dragons, but also how do we look at fifth edition and all the editions? Again, my brother hadn't played for 20, 30 years, so how do we look at these things? And I came to a simple conclusion. Think of each version, each edition of Dungeons and Dragons like Final Fantasy, or at least the mainline Final Fantasy series. That if you look at it, it's like, oh, where do I start in terms of playing a Final Fantasy game? It's like there's 15 numbered Final Fantasy games. In a way, there's 15 number 16 about to come out in a few months, or scheduled like to come out later this year, early beginning of next year. You know, where do I begin? It's like, that's the thing. Each Final Fantasy main series is its own separate game, but there are definite elements that tie them together. This is the same thing with Dungeons and Dragons in terms of the editions. They are definitive elements since the original creation by Guy Gax and his co-writers to what is happening right now. That if you play what is considered advanced Dungeons and Dragons, or the original like paper book release, and then you play 5th edition, it's like, how are these two games related? You can't see it. But if you play each edition going on and understand some trends that were happening in not only the gaming sphere in terms of the tabletop role playing, but some of the just gaming sphere in the greater context, you understand some of the trends. Like that each edition in part feels like Dungeons and Dragons, but fundamentally, if you play first edition and you play 5th edition, they're going to fundamentally feel completely different. But there are elements that if we sit down, if you played a thief in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and you played a rogue in today, in 5th edition, they're going to feel the same, though completely different. Why? Well, if we go original, the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons into second edition, into third edition, into fourth, into fifth, we can start seeing a lot of the like, oh, we are seeing where they are tweaking things in terms of each edition and where we, how we got from the original thief class to the rogue. You can see this. XP level 3 did a great study of the Vogue as an example. I'll probably provide a link down in the description for that. So it's one of those things that, and to go back to the Final Fantasy allegation synopsis, you can directly see if you go and look at Final Fantasy, the original Final Fantasy 1, however you want to refer to it, if you look at Final Fantasy 1 and Final Fantasy 15, it's like, how are these two games even related? They have the same monikers, completely different stories. It's like, but if you went, it's like, well, the trends were very narrative heavy games. Now in Final Fantasy 15, open world was more of a trend. Okay. And then you can like, oh yeah, we can pick elements here, like these two elements are the same. These two elements, these two elements, these two elements. And it's like as time progresses, we get to see a lot of these like, oh look, there's similars here, here, and here with 15 and original. Thusly, as time goes on, we can start comparing and contrasting and seeing the similarities, even though the games are completely different. With that being said, I think that really describes of what I would think about Dungeons and Dragons, and where newer players or returning players should start. Talk to a few local people, um, and like see where they are in terms of what edition they are playing, and if they come from a history of playing Dungeons and Dragons, like myself, I have a slight understanding of where Dungeons and Dragons was, and if my brother was ever interested in probably playing another game again, and it's like, oh yeah, I really love the thief class. It's like I would have to say, okay, you want to play a thief or like a fighting man? Okay, it's going to feel fundamentally different, but fundamentally the same. You can do and have both. But let's you remember what you like playing. We can, in a way, make sure that you get that same feeling. It's just not going to feel exactly the same. As always, this is a hail over hill. I hope that what I said makes sense. Do the YouTube things if you want. Don't if you want. It's up to you in the end. As always, me and Leo Francis says goodbye. Peace.